Welcome and thank you for joining us today as we discuss the concussion protocol within sports. This presentation was prepared by Amber Zuniga, John Zaroon, Maximilian Wilson, Ethan Smith, and myself, Mary Wilson, and I'll be your presenter today. We will be touching on these objectives that first define a concussion and discuss the causes, diagnostic criteria, and treatment. We'll also discuss the history of the NFL, their mission statement, concussion protocols, OSHA's impact on the NFL, and we'll analyze NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell's leadership skills in management of sports-related concussions. Let's start by defining concussion. It is currently defined by the Centers for Disease Control and the World Health Organization as a traumatically induced psychological disruption of brain function. So, what exactly is a concussion? The CDC describes a concussion as when the head and brain moves rapidly back and forth caused by a sudden bump, blow, injury to the head or body. According to the Mayo Clinic, some symptoms include headache, nausea, fatigue, blurry vision, confusion, and dizziness. Although there is no direct cure for concussions, there are recommended treatments from the CDC that can help. The first is relative rest by limiting activities that require thinking and concentration, avoiding physical activities, gradually increasing daily activities as one can tolerate them, shorten school or work days, and finally, in more serious cases, therapies and rehabilitation. Now let's talk about the relationship of concussions and the National Football League, better known as the NFL. The NFL mission and value states that we are all stewards of football. We unite people and inspire communities in the joy of the game by delivering the world's most exciting sports and entertainment experience. In 1920, a group of men gathered in Canton, Ohio, in order to form the first professional American Football League. This organization was named the American Professional Football Association and originally only consisted of 10 teams as opposed to the 32 we have today. Players at the advent of this new league wore very little to no padding, and their head protection consisted of a thin leather helmet placed loosely on their heads. The NFL has a history of sports-related concussions that affects its players. Quarterbacks, running backs, and defensive backs tend to have the highest incidences of concussions. As football evolved, so did the level of contact, which increased the amount of sports-related injuries, and so the protective gear evolved with it. This image depicts the evolution of football helmets since the early 1900s. It begins with the thin leather helmets on the top left and ends at the bottom right to the molded polycarbonate helmets we're familiar with today. The newest helmets today provide more shock-absorbing protection against impact, reducing the likelihood of head trauma. In 1994, the NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue passed concussions off as a PAC journalism issue and claimed the league has very little concussions. The same year, the NFL founded the Mild Traumatic Brain Injury Committee, but still didn't view concussions as a huge issue. In 1997, the league developed new rules that didn't allow players to return to the game if they were experiencing concussion symptoms 15 minutes after the injury. Finally, in 2013, with a new commissioner, the NFL put into place all new concussion protocols, which included having a trained neurologist at the sideline of every game. Although the NFL has existed for decades, the official concussion protocol for the NFL wasn't established until 2011. Protocols were monitored by the NFL Head, Neck, and Spine Committee. Both previous and current protocols monitor immediate health conditions of players. The symptoms are observed and assessed in players that show obvious signs of effects towards player health. In October of 2022, the concussion protocols were updated to look for ataxia, a condition that makes players lose control of their body. This was set in place after Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa suffered a concussion in a game against the Cincinnati Bengals. This was not the first concussion he's had in the season. Screenings for physical and neurological damage was and is currently used by medical trainers and practitioners in order to find conditions. Return to field of play is now a multi-step process that is monitored by health professionals. NFL concussion protocols are updated yearly based off of medical and technological progression. As of August 8, 2006, Roger Goodell has been leading the NFL organization as the current commissioner. Goodell has a broad authority over the organization. These authorities include day-to-day operations, business decisions, and enacting policies. He has matured in his position and has recently been working with health authorities to reduce sports-related concussions in the NFL. Roger Goodell implements a top-down traditional leadership style where the basis is power and authority and the focus is on finance. He is creating a more divisive environment in favor of business success. He has been called very personable but has a short fuse when things don't go his way. Goodell seems to struggle in conflict management and getting two people or organizations with differing goals to work together but excels at making and implementing key business decisions. His conflict management is a mixture of assertive and competitive. The problem with his leadership style is that the focus is not on people. Combining his mastery of sports business with a servant leadership style would benefit Goodell in his position because his focus would not only be on the business, but also on the audience and the players. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, most commonly known as OSHA, has deeply involved themselves with the NFL and the safety of its professional American football players. The organization has created a drastic change within the NFL and has effectively created a safer environment for the players. Before OSHA's regulations crossed the NFL, the league had many controversies. In December of 1995, the chairman at the time, Dr. Elliot Pellman, was interviewed about concussions, and his response was quite controversial. He stated that concussions are part of the profession, an occupational risk, and veterans clear more quickly than rookies. They can unscramble their brains a little faster. In 2007, Dr. Elliot Pellman stepped down as commissioner, and the newly appointed commissioner, Dr. Ira Kaysen, still denied any evidence of a link between head injuries in the NFL players and depression, dementia, or any other long-term problems resulting in brain damage, even after doctors had found these injuries within all former NFL players. When Roger Goodell took over as commissioner, he initially continued the same sentiments as his predecessors, but by December of 2009, the NFL finally admitted the link between concussions and long-term problems for the first time. The league also started to create stricter policies to reduce the probability of concussions. After the controversies, OSHA began to regulate the NFL. OSHA has helped to alleviate some of the threats of litigation, created a greater probability for change, and prevention of injuries. OSHA regulation restricts players with concussions from playing until there are no more symptoms of injury. Prior to that, the NFL would allow the teams to mandate the player to return to playing after they slightly recovered. OSHA created a general duty clause against the NFL and its teams, where they cannot avoid denying any wrongdoings involving a concussion. Overall, the impact OSHA has created upon the NFL is enough to counter the past regulations the NFL has had since they all work in the NFL and the NFL team's favor. Sports-related concussions are inevitable in sports that have a tremendous amount of physical contact, like football, but the rate of occurrences can be reduced with good leadership. Roger Goodell's actions and inactions suggest that he has more of a traditional leadership style. Early on as commissioner, Goodell took on a top-down approach where the basis was power and authority and the focus was on finance. Maturing in his position, he has begun to show more interest in reducing sports-related injuries and works with multiple health organizations like OSHA to revise concussion protocols yearly and as needed. Goodell should consider taking on a servant leadership style where the basis is stewardship and the focus is on people. Stewardship is the key to the type of leader the NFL needs and would align with the NFL mission and value. By becoming a leader who is a servant to the needs of the organization and its constituents, Goodell can make an effective change to further protect the NFL players from sports-related concussions. This concludes our presentation. Thank you for joining us.